MLS Aces Podcast. This is your host, Tom Sweezy. This is episode 283, our Eastern Conference preview. And back with me after 2 weeks off, 2 episodes off of chatting Major League Soccer. We got Jason Vivang. You're back. You're globally traveled. There's 2 first division women's soccer leagues in America. Like, how are you feeling since the trip and everything? You're on mute there, bud.
Great way That feels right. Yep.
Great way to come back.
Honestly, it feels like way longer than 2 weeks. Like, I don't even know where the time has gone at this point. I'm just like, it's crazy. So much has happened.
Yeah.
We're just rolling. We're starting our Eastern Conference preview now, and it just doesn't feel like the season's about to start. But I'm literally going to be at a game in like 2.5 weeks.
It feels like it feels like Columbus just won MLS Cup, which I guess, like, right, it's not that far removed that they did, but it does just make it more and more wild of how short the MLS offseason is. We've already seen the Vancouver Whitecaps come and go in CONCACAF Champions Cup. Way to go out there last night, Vancouver, and be the first disappointment of the MLS season, 2024 MLS season. But look, we have a fresh new season. 2024 is here, and with that does come our conference previews. These are always, I wouldn't say the more stressful, hectic episodes, because we're trying to cram so much into so little, and the league's only getting bigger and bigger. So we're going to dive right into it. Pretty much we're going to go back and forth of kind of introducing these teams, information around the teams, and everything like that, what the offseason looked like for them, right? And then kind of give a little piece of information about it. I will do my best not to ramble on Jason's teams, but if you guys have listened to this podcast before, I have to throw my 2 cents in. And then at the end, we're going to then give our 15 through 1 of what we think prediction-wise, the teams in the Eastern Conference are going to finish. And then next week, folks, we have our Western Conference preview, because then that weekend, MLS games are happening. So MLS season is here. And Jason, I am giving you the honor of kicking off the Eastern Conference with, we're going alphabetically, by the way, so with Atlanta United.
Yeah, so if your team doesn't go, first, it's not because we hate them.
You might, but,
Yeah, there's a chance. So we'll start off with Atlanta United, managed by Gonzalo Pineda. They finished 6th in the East last season, and lost to Columbus, the eventual champions, in the first round. So 0 trophies for them last season, but they did make some moves. So obviously the biggest departure for them, I would say, is Miles Robinson going to Cincinnati. That's a pretty big hole to fill there in the back line, which I feel like they worked towards that with the signing of Stan Gregerson from Bordeaux for $2.1 million. That was pretty good there.
That
was pretty good. I kept reading the names of all these players. I was like, I can't mess it up. There's so many. But I think that starts to fill some of their holes that they lost. I also think the signings of Bartosz Slis from Legia Warsaw for $3.5 million, and getting Dax McCarty on a free from, as he was not re-signed by Nashville, are pretty big moves to bolster up their midfield. But I mean, I feel like you can't really talk about this team without talking about Thiago Almada. I mean, this time last year, we were talking about the same story going, is Almada going to be there throughout the whole season? Is he going to leave in the summer? Which, I mean, that's still kind of a possibility and hanging over their heads. I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like both of us are pretty surprised he's still here.
Yeah, I mean, look, he can leave at any point. It's just really from what I'm hearing and seeing, it just comes down to when the price tag, when the price evaluation of what Atlanta United value him at is met, and he'll go.
Yeah, and they obviously value him very highly. I think they're looking for like almost 40, I think.
I think probably 30 from what I've read. But yeah.
Well, let's get it to 40, huh?
I mean, that's not too bad, yeah.
But I mean, obviously their team starts with him. They kind of go as he goes. Giacomakis, another full season for Atlanta. I think one of the better strikers in the conference at this point. I think he's just there. He's consistent. He's there to be the DP striker that I could probably name 8 teams after this that would love to have him. as their DP striker. So I think those two guys are obviously like they're stars, and we have to see big things from them. But yeah, I mean, this team is. Oh, I forgot to even mention that they signed Josh Cohen,
Yeah.
new goalkeeper from Maccabi Haifa for free. And so they're going to have a goalie change potentially, as Brad Guzan is going to maybe come off, be on the bench, which is a huge change for a club that's literally had Brad Guzan, like, what, for their entire history at this point?
He's one of the original OGs of the club for sure. I mean, Guzan just wasn't a reliable goalkeeper anymore at this point. So unfortunately,
he's got to be like upper 30s at this point.
I mean, I think he's like 39, 38, 39, 40, something like that.
Yeah, so it kind of makes sense. Sign a new goalie, see where you can go. I mean, I think they lost a huge piece in Miles Robinson, and we obviously all love Miles Robinson. But their offseason has been like kind of sneaky good, and I think having Dax McCarty as a potential like off the bench or when the season gets midway through and you're dealing with injuries or tired legs, like that's a piece to be had. That he's been on a team that had one of the better goals against averages for every single year. So I think overall they've had a good offseason. We'll see where they're going.
No, for sure. And look, Dax brings a level of leadership and MLS know-how as well. I think just to quickly mention a few names that I feel like are important to understand if you're going to watch Atlanta United. Caleb Wiley is another dude who I feel like his time in Major League Soccer is ticking, right? Like he's U.S. Youth International, and he's already gotten capped at the senior level, and I feel like he could definitely get that move like we saw George Bello a few years ago. And
I feel like Wiley is sort of grown over the course of last year, like a lot, and we're gonna see another full year, and especially with Almada there and Giacomakis again for the whole season, like they have a pretty good role for Caleb Wiley, it seems like, where he has a decent amount of freedom, so we could see him have a big year.
100%. And then the last name that I want to mention, it's funny, I'm not going to mention their other DP winger in Saba Labshanze. I'm pretty sure is how you say it. I didn't pronounce that correctly at all, but it's fine. But I want to talk about Zande Silva really quick. They brought him in on loan from, I think, Ligue 2 last year from Dijon. He was very good, and he played very well in the playoffs for Atlanta. And I feel like you now have some of these guys who were brought in last summer, who now you have half a season, a full off season, and now they're kind of heading into a full year one of Major League Soccer action. I feel like Atlanta United could be a team that's pushing into the top 4 or 5 in the Eastern Conference if some of these guys kind of pan out, but I mean, that's Atlanta. Do we want to move forward?
Yeah, let's keep it rolling.
All right. Charlotte FC
nice
manager Dean Smith, the big English Premier League. That was probably the biggest acquisition if we're going to talk acquisitions for all these teams. But Dean Smith coming in as their new manager. Last season, they finished 9th in the Eastern Conference, losing to the New York Red Bulls in the MLS Cup play-in game. They did not win any trophies in 2023. And if we're gonna, I guess I'll start off with the departures, because there were 2 big departures, 2, I guess, big as in roster designations. Karol Swiderski, he went on loan to Hellas Verona in the Italian Serie A. Kamil Józwiak, he was sold to La Liga side Granada. And I would also toss in there Derek Jones being a pretty decent free agency loss for this club heading into 2024. The additions outside of Dean Smith, which I will sit here and argue is their biggest offseason addition, and obviously some re-signings and stuff like that. But they brought in a brand new D-mid in Jabril Diani. They also brought in a ton of talent from their MLS Next Pro side into the MLS side. So one of the biggest talent, the biggest talent being brought up from MLS Next Pro to MLS is Nikola Petkovic, who they brought in just today as of recording the 15th. He was the largest incoming sale into MLS Next Pro, and Charlotte definitely just stashed him away for a season in MLS Next Pro to bring him up this season. And this is the plan that they're doing. They're making him a U22 signing. He already has a Serbian international cap. at 20 years old. But on top of the Pekovic signing, they're also bringing in center back Joao Pedro. They're bringing up goalkeeper Chituro Odunze, and I'm pretty sure one more, but whatever. They got MLS Super Draft pick signings coming in. This is a little bit of a youth movement that I think we're seeing with Charlotte FC as they're trying to find a system and a style under Dean Smith that is going to bring longevity and long-term success. The lone DP that is currently on this roster is Enzo Capetti, who apparently, according to reports, had opportunities to leave this offseason, but he wanted to stick in Charlotte. He wants to be in Charlotte for the long term and kind of bring that success. So kind of pairing all of that young talent that we mentioned with the DP of Enzo Capetti and some of the veterans that are still on this roster. If we're talking about a Scott Arfield, we're talking about an Ashley Westwood, Brant Bronico, Nathan Byrne, right? Christian Kalina in net. There is a lot of young talent, but there is also a lot of global veteran know-how that has been around the block. And I think this is going to be, to me, Charlotte doesn't feel like a 2024 success. Charlotte feels like a 2025, 2026, 2027 success, right? Like this is Dean Smith under year one implementing his team, getting some younger guys into his system, and then let's see where we can build it to the future. I like Charlotte, but I do have my concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the two, similar to kind of what you were saying, the two biggest moves they've made this offseason were sort of non-player additions, right? So getting Dean Smith to come in there and be their manager is getting that knowledge, that experience of a Premier League manager, just getting him in the door, letting him mold, like you said, a lot of the younger players on the team in his system. I think this is a really good idea to kind of have this youth movement in some ways with a new manager who can be like, no, you guys are young. Like, this is how we're going to learn how to play. This is how we're going to play. And then kind of slowly start to build and see results. And then I think another big, addition by subtraction almost is Swiderski leaving opens up the door for like less competition for Enzo Capetti on the field. And I think it could just be a better overall system with Dean Smith and with Enzo Capetti being that, target man in the center.
I also think not forcing Swiderski to play as like a 10 when he clearly isn't a 10 and he's
I mean, I think it was just like having those two guys and it was almost like neither of them could fit in the role they wanted to play while the other was on the field almost.
100%. I don't think the two meshed well together. I think honestly Swiderski is best in a two striker formation, and Charlotte clearly from the top down doesn't want to play that through all of their managers that they've gone through. So it just seems like Charlotte's doing a lot with opening up two DP signings, and I know there's a lot of rumors and reports right now that it could happen this in
the next week or
window. It could happen in the summer, but we could see the largest incoming signing in MLS history, and that has some exciting things around Charlotte. But we'll talk about that more.
Yeah, I mean, I think patience is the key here for Charlotte. For sure. For this season, that's the name of the game.
For sure. I think Charlotte, like I said, I don't have my concerns about the future if Dean Smith hangs around and they can really kind of build something under a manager. We've talked about this on this podcast before. So Charlotte 2024, I'm a little down on. For the future, I'm higher on. But let's move forward to your boys.
Yeah. So next up is the Chicago Fire, managed by Frank Klopas for the third time now. Hey, one of the better teams the Fire have had in the last decade and a half was managed by Frank Klopas. So that's exciting. Last season, 13th in the East. Not great. No trophies, obviously. Yeah. But this was a pretty big offseason for the Fire, so I'll try to just shorten it into.
You be excited and you talk about it, Jason.
All right. So, I mean, obviously Navarro was traded, right? And we got Andrew Gutman in return from Colorado. That kind of shores up that left back spot. And even in preseason, he's already looked pretty solid. So that's a huge improvement already. We finally signed a number 9 DP in Hugo Kuipers, who was from Genk, club record fee with I think the potential to get up to like 15 million or something, which is crazy. But I mean, you can't say the Fire don't spend the money. It's just, will it work? And I think that'll still be the question here as I finish this. But
I will just say quickly on Koifers, so we don't go back to it. He has the profile that has worked in Major League Soccer before, so I have hope and excitement around that one for you
well,
guys.
and he's coming in flying. One of the top scorers.
He has scored a shit ton of goals in the last 2 seasons.
So this guy's not lacking confidence, and as long as I don't have to watch Casper anymore, which actually was, I think, announced today that he's going over to Lugano.
I didn't see that.
That's great. I don't know if Lugano fans are happy with that. But that's big. But obviously, we signed Tom Barlow as from Red Bulls, and he'll be sort of like that backup striker. But it's actually like pretty exciting now because I think he's going to be perfect for the role behind Kuipers. And then the big one, Kellen Acosta signing on a free deal that I think had been rumored for weeks on end, and then they were like, "Oh, he's with the team," and like they're still not announcing it.
And there's a chance but there was also a point where it was like, there's a chance he's not coming to the Fire now, and Colorado was sweeping back in or whatever, right?
Yeah, it was a stressful couple weeks. I was like, just announce him, please. But honestly, like, I mean, in addition to Tobias Salquest, who will be a new center back from a Danish club, Silkeborg, and also a Ragoni from Lugano on a loan deal with the option to buy. And so, that's a right back. Added another center back to pair with Shihos, and it kind of feels like Tehran might be out the door eventually. Like, I love him as a player, but there's always been this rumbling of he wants to go, to a club in Europe potentially, or it could happen. So I think this is a good signing to have another center back to at least be behind him for the start of the season. But other than that, I mean, you still have Xherdan Shaqiri, who, while he hasn't been incredible, like, has had his moments in MLS and now has a lot more talent around him. He's got Kellen Acosta behind him. He's got Kuipers in front of him. Brian Gutierrez in another year, who, whether he plays the 10, whether he plays on a wing, wherever he goes, he's very good, exciting times. And then obviously Chris Brady back in goal for another season, who, like, there's nothing bad to say about that guy. So
no.
I don't want to just keep going on this, but I think there's a huge improvement for the Fire. What worries me, I guess, is like there's also been a huge improvement in a lot of teams in the East.
Yes.
So it's not like a sure thing that we have the playoffs here, and I don't want to like pretend, because I've seen them spend money before and I've seen it not work out. So
I have to say this. Well, and one, I quickly said it, but Chris Mueller is also back from injury, right?
Yeah. Chris Mueller back from injury, and that guy plays with a fire behind him and is amazing.
So my only thing that I just want to say about the Chicago Fire here, and then we'll move forward, unless you have anything else you want to say, is I don't think fans can blame the front office for not putting together a capable roster at this point. This is, I think, outside of what the Colorado Rapids have done, might be the best turnover on paper that we've seen from a roster that was lacking to a roster that now you see, highlights and top tier players all over a potential starting 11 or an 18 or whatever, right? So you cannot, Chicago Fire fans, and I'm just talking to you too, Jason. You cannot fault the front office, because you guys have stars, you guys have DPs, you have money spent, you have U22 guys.
And we still have another DP spot available.
Yeah, you have depth. You have everything that I think can lead to a playoff spot for the Chicago Fire. To your point, unfortunately, you play in the tougher of the two conferences, and that's also going to come into effect when we talk about my team as well. But we'll get there.
I think personally, like, there is depth, but it's not like it is a drop off. So
for sure,
the starting 11 is very solid, very strong. There's a lot of money in that starting 11, but injuries and things like that could hurt the team a lot, and just lack of experience in big games, I guess, could also hurt them. I just feel like at this point, Well, I guess we don't even have that whack anymore. We got Kellen Acosta.
I was gonna say you got Shaqiri, you got Kellen, Shehos has been around. I mean,
True.
look, Tom.
I mean,
Tom
I'm
Barlow.
excited. This is an exciting team. You're right, though. Like you can't fault the front office anymore
No,
for not going at it because they're spending money left and right now.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Anything else you want to say about your Fire? Like,
No,
get
I
that
think
out
we
before the season starts.
commandeered 7 or 8 minutes there.
Okay, let's move on to one of the two teams in Ohio, FC Cincinnati. Manager Pat Noonan is back for another year and back after the club's most successful year in their MLS history, first place in the Eastern Conference, winning a Supporter Shield, winning their first MLS trophy, losing to the eventual champions Columbus Crew in the Eastern Conference Finals. Quickly, just to kind of go through some of the departures. Cincinnati's offseason has been highly talked about on this podcast, so I don't think I want to spend too much time around it. But big time departures, right? Jerson Mosquera returning to Wolves after the loan during the 2023 season. He was one of the best center backs in the league, obviously one of the best center backs on Cincinnati, and now he's playing in La Liga, so good for him. Brandon Vasquez, striker, USMNT striker, sold for multi-millions of dollars to CF Monterrey in Liga MX, and he's already scoring a ton and he's finding a bunch of success there. And then Junior Moreno, I would say, is probably that next big departure from the club, central midfielder that left via free agency, and I think he's playing over in the Middle East somewhere right now. And then kind of, turning that around into who's coming into this club to replace those guys. For the Jerson Mosquera replacement, we talked about him before with Atlanta. It's Miles Robinson, right? He was the best free agent on this offseason. He is the biggest maybe name in free agency we've ever seen. USMNT International, a guy that's hoping to push into a Copa America roster, a World Cup roster. I think talent-wise, there's not much better than him center back-wise within Major League Soccer, and Cincinnati being able to have two USMNT level center backs on their roster is insane, and it's a great addition for them. The Brandon Vasquez replacement in free agent edition striker Corey Baird scored in 2023. He found success with the Houston Dynamo, and I think if he can pair well and build off that success with the DP striker and Aaron Bupenza, who I'll mention in a little bit, I think you'll find Corey Baird to be probably a fair replacement for what Brandon Vasquez did on the field last season. And then the Junior Moreno replacement, Pavel Buka from Victoria Pilsen, a central midfielder who is a profile that I think we've seen success with, but I think we've also seen some guys kind of just fall off the page. I do have trust in what Pat Noonan and this FC Cincinnati front office has done over the last few years. Their scouting, even finding a guy like Obi Nwodo, who is now easily one of the best sixes, if not the best six in the league. So I have hope and faith that Pavel Bucha is going to be one of the best, maybe more central midfielder partners, kind of maybe similar to what Columbus has with an Aiden Morris and a Darlington Nagbe. Now it's Bucha and Obi Nwodo in that central midfield. So look, Cincinnati plays one of the more unique styles in Major League Soccer. They play with a back three, and they kind of have their wing backs attacking all day long. I think we're going to see that same system, same formation, same style heading into it, just kind of plugging and placing those three guys that I mentioned in a Bucha, in a Miles Robinson, and in a Corey Baird in replacement for some of their departures. My biggest concern here is what is Alvis Powell going to do at right wing back now that no Santi Arias is on the roster, no Ray Gaddis is on the roster? Now it's Alvis Powell's spot to lock down at right wing back. Alvaro Barreal is still on this roster, which we talked about. Thiago Almada, that's another shocking one to me, that after the season he's still here. And if he can be on the roster for an entire 2024 season, then Cincinnati, I think, is fully capable of being one of the best teams, if not the best team in Major League Soccer once again. And then obviously, you have to talk about Lucho Acosta, 2023 MVP. He's the dude. He's the man. He's the thing. He's the straw to the drink. He ties it all together, right? He is going to be the guy that ties that stellar back three to Obi Nwodo, to Alvaro Barreal, to Aaron Bupenza up top. without him, Cincinnati is in a completely different tier. I think when you talk about it, even with the talent that's spread all around. But I mean, look, if he's scoring goals and he's distributing opportunities to his teammates, Alvaro Barrio, Lucho Acosta is going to be in the MVP conversation once again. But that's my Cincinnati take.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. I think the one thing Corey Baird for me is always been more of a winger, and it'll be interesting to see him play a little bit further inside because he's going to have to with this team with the way they play. So I think you're right. Like he is like I think what they did really well, and you kind of hit on it, was find replacements for the players that they were losing. I just think Corey Baird and Brandon Vasquez aren't perfect replacement for it. But that's like nitpicking on a team that's insanely good.
Sure. I would just argue Vasquez didn't do much box score wise last year. I think once Brenner left, you saw the decline in Vasquez, where I think maybe Baird is a little bit more of a complementary piece to Bupenza, where Vasquez wasn't as much.
I think Corey Baird's just a better complementary piece.
100%. Yeah.
But I think like the last thing I'll say is I think what it stands out to me about this team is like if you look at their formation or whatever, you look at this team, you kind of have like a line down the middle of like the consistent guys, like Lucho, Bupenza, Nwodo, Matt Miazga, Roman Celentano in goal. Like they still kept their core slightly changing, losing some really good players in Mosquera, obviously. Yeah. And Vasquez, obviously, and then replacing them with people around the edges. So it's not like this is a way different team that just won supporter shield. This is still an incredible team that still has, the core of that team and the most important players on that team.
100%. I think Major League Soccer, you win when you have a solid spine. Cincinnati still has their spine, and I think it's going to be strong once again.
Yeah.
All right. I'll let you lead into the other side of Ohio.
Yeah, so we're just going down the highway past the Hell is Real sign. With Columbus Crew up next, obviously managed by Wilfred Nancy, third in the East last season, but they did go on to win MLS Cup in just a completely dominant performance that I'm sure we all remember. Not a huge offseason for them, but obviously, like you come off an MLS Cup, it's not like you're going out and signing 30 players. So I would say like the biggest ones is Derek Jones coming in as a free agent. I think just as a depth piece, that's going to be a great move for them. I think, I guess most of what they've done has been depth because when you have guys like Cucho, Diego Rossi, Matan, like this team that they've got built so well and with such a good style. I think we praise this team quite a bit over the offseason and towards the end of last season. So I don't want to just like give them all the love, but they also brought in more mid-depth with Marina Hinestrosa. So a couple guys in there that are boosting up a little bit the depth. But obviously Julian Gressel out, wasn't a starter, but like major impact sub off the bench we saw across MLS Cup playoffs. And then Kevin Molino's out. But I think when it comes down to this team is like, this is a consistent team. They lost, not a huge amount. I mean, generally the starting lineup is almost exactly the same.
It relatively should be.
Yeah. I mean, they re-signed some of their guys. They brought in a little bit of depth. But this is going to be a confident team this year again, because again, like it's literally the same team that just went out and won. I think what's scary for other clubs is that, you now have Diego Rossi here for the full season, right? You have this team built and it's not like, oh, Rossi's coming in mid-season. Can he get to speed? Can he get on the same page as everyone? You have Hinestrosa behind him, and you have Matan and Christian Ramirez behind him, and you have like a ton of depth and a ton of quality, and you have a lot of time with all these guys now, where the style and Wilfred Nancy obviously is a phenomenal manager. We've talked about it at much length. And then Patrick Schulte, I think, could be like their X factor. I think if he can improve even more, we saw him obviously have a great season, win MLS Cup with the team, and he was a major piece. I think even more improvement out of him, and this team is going to be. I mean, regardless, I think they're still going to be right up at near the top. So.
100%. This is a team that's at the top of the league, talent wise, coaching wise, everything. Right. I personally think they're too deep at every single position, and I don't think that many MLS teams can say that. You said Patrick Schulte is your X factor. I'm going to throw out Will Sands as my X factor. Will Sands played some phenomenal soccer for the first few weeks of the 2023 season before going out with a season-ending injury, and he was the starting left wing-back option, and Yaya Boa kind of came in and did a pretty decent job at filling in for him for an entire season. Now you have Yaya Boa kind of as that backup option, or even if he's starting while Sands kind of gets back to full consistency, right? Will Sands is a hell of a player. Obviously, I'm not just saying that because he's the brother of one of the best homegrowns in Major League Soccer, James Sands. But look, I think this team, you're seeing the growth of a lot of young talent, whether it's Aiden Moore, Sean Zawatsky, whether you're talking about MLS veterans who have kind of found their home in a Steven Moreira, Rudy Camacho with Columbus and under Nancy, and it would surprise me if Columbus doesn't win something in 2024. That is what I'm going to leave off my piece with there.
I mean, we did do this same thing after they won MLS Cup in 2020. We said, "Oh man, they almost have too much depth. This team is really good."
And then Caleb Porter, though, that was the difference. The meltdown was coming at some point.
True. Yeah, Wilfred Nancy is in a different class, I guess, at this point.
For sure. I mean, look, the biggest concern for me is if youth starts to get sold, if Wilfred Nancy gets an offer overseas, if that's where I start to find my concerns with Columbus. But at that point, Columbus.
But again, we saw last season when Zelarayan went out, like they had a plan in place and they got Rossi in there.
Yeah.
At least at this point, like if that started to happen, I feel like I'm pretty confident that they would have at least something in place or an idea like in place to try and go after someone to replace whatever they're going to lose. But that being said, who knows, right?
Exactly, right? That's the fun part about this is we're going to look like idiots in a few months.
I can't wait.
Let's talk about DC United. Brand new manager in Troy Lesane, who was the Red Bulls interim manager for most of last season. In 2023, DC finished 12th in the Eastern Conference, missing the playoffs, not winning any trophies. A definite, I think, quiet roster overhaul. Definitely you have some of the big name pieces still on the team in a Christian Benteke, Matthias Klich, Gabriel Pirani, their U22 signing from last year is still in holding down the center of the park, right? Tyler Miller still in net, Ted Di-Pietro, and all these young homegrowns that I think had some exciting moments last year are all still on the team, but a lot of overall and overhaul in the sense of some more familiar faces that we've seen from DC gone. Chris Durkin traded away to St. Louis. Andy Nahar, he left via free agency. Huan went to Montreal in a trade where DC kind of just swapped right backs with them. Aaron Herrera making his way from Montreal to DC as part of that trade. Jared Stroud coming over via that Chris Durkin trade with St. Louis. And they did add a U22 initiative. D-mid, he also can play center back. Matti Peltola from Helsinki, HJK Helsinki. From what I see, Peltola could potentially be starting central center back type option that can kind of bump up into the midfield, or he's maybe playing in more of a midfield type role and kind of bouncing back to allow for a little bit of roster flexibility or tactical flexibility over the course of a game, right? So I do like that piece and his profile. Again, with U22 signings, you can't really guarantee that they're going to work out, but the profile looks good. They also decided to bring in a lot of depth pieces that I think are going to probably get starting minute options, whether we're talking about Lucas Barklett, Chris McVie, Connor Antley from the USL Championship, which I'm pretty pumped about that one personally. There's a lot of kind of youth signings that I think Troy Lesane either had his fingerprints on when he eventually came over later in the offseason, or that were there that kind of just came in to help bolster a lineup for whichever manager was eventually going to take over, that brand new general manager, Ali McKay, decided to do. And look, this is a team that a lot of youth, a lot of question marks around, I think, specific positions, where guys are going to play, production that we're going to see. But I think DC has the potential to push into a playoff spot. I just think the Eastern Conference is tough, and there's too many question marks for me to be overly excited about DC United.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, I look at their roster, it's Pirani, Solid, Knuth, Cleach. Like, that's a good midfield. It's just, is there enough there to create for Benteke at 33? If Benteke, who has obviously been very good for them, I feel like I say this every year, is another year older, it's just slowly getting towards the point where, what if Benteke comes out and he's not the same, and then this team kind of is ride or die with him at this point. I agree. I think they did get a little bit better. I think Lassine has a team here that he can kind of coach up, which is a good thing. But I just don't know. I'm kind of concerned with their creation ability. I kind of concerned about where they're going to get the goals from if Benteke isn't going to hit 15 again.
It's all fair concerns, and that's why I think, especially in a conference that you said plenty of teams got better, right? It's tough to piece DC higher in my brain, right? But I mean, we can move on to a team that completely is the opposite of where DC is right now.
Yeah. So let's, shall we? We'll move on to Inter Miami, managed by Tata Martino. Last season, they finished 14th in the East, which I would say isn't really a good example of where they're at now. Right. They won the Leagues Cup last year. Biggest signings coming in, obviously, the major one is Luis Suarez from Gremio. I think that listeners have probably heard a million things about Luis Suarez by now. Coming to MLS, I mean, this is a massive deal to be along with Messi. Julian Gressel on a free transfer, I think, is a huge addition for them. Obviously, we've seen what he can do off the bench for Columbus and in a solid team. This guy, we've said it a million times, is one of the best creators in MLS. And you now have him in a team where he's got Luis Suarez up top. He's got Messi in front of him, Busquets behind him. I think it'll be pretty good.
Yeah.
And then Nicolas Friere on a loan from Pumas, I think, is another big signing because they lost Kamal Miller this season in a trade. So him being gone is a pretty big hole at center back, and Friere can try to fill that in. I think the biggest concern for me is center back in this team. Nicolas Friere, Tomas Aviles, and then you have Sergei Krivstov, who kind of played a little bit. I mean, he's pretty good. I think just overall, that is the concern. You still have Jordi Alba, you have Busquets, you've got these big names. You've got a lot of expectations now, too. I think with Messi there, you could almost say Messi is still their biggest signing, even in this offseason, because it's just such a massive difference, especially a full offseason with Messi in your team. Just has to be huge, right? Obviously, Josef Martinez is now gone, but this team has a pretty good amount of depth, I think. They've got Sergio Busquets and Gregor right behind him. They've got Luis Suarez, Leonardo Campagna. They've got Robert Taylor, who we saw kind of hit a different level. And I haven't even mentioned Drake Callender in goal, who also kind of hit a different level. So this team's going to be very good. I think they kind of aren't Messi super dependent anymore as they were last year, but they're still Messi dependent.
I was gonna say they're still. Trust me, it's still gonna be
more so. They're not as Messi dependent as they were last year, I feel like. Yeah. But they this isn't the worst team in MLS without Messi.
No, and look, I mean, I said it for Columbus, and I'm gonna say it for Miami, and I know the preseason tour has been crap, and I'm not adding too much to this Miami piece because we've talked about it. The coverage is out there. Everyone's talking about Miami. We get it. People hate it. People love it. Whatever, right? but Miami's going to be good. They are too deep at every single position, if you ask me. There's a lot of roster and flexibility as well. And I trust Tata Martino as a manager in Major League Soccer. That's what it comes down to for me. I think Miami's going to be good. I don't know if they're going to be supporter shield level, but again, this is still a good team.
I think they're playoff level.
100%.
I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Without giving away, like, I mean, I don't even have my full predictions ready yet, but I would say like they're upper tier playoff, lower than some of the other teams we've already mentioned, but up there.
I think that's fair. All right. Let's move on. Club de Foot Montreal. Brand new manager, Laurent Courtois, coming over from the Columbus Crew 2, where he was a great success in MLS Next Pro. In 2023, the team missed the playoffs, finishing 10th in the Eastern Conference, not winning a trophy. They did this offseason lose Romel Quioto as a striker, winger, kind of whatever you wanted to consider him, via free agency. Aaron Herrera, who I mentioned during the DC piece, losing him via trade. And then also another right back in Zachary Brault-Guillard, who's been on the roster for a while now, losing him via free agency. As far as players coming in, and I think, Montreal, again, did a good job at making sure that Courtois could probably have the most success he could. Year one, you bring in a former MLS MVP and a Josef Martinez. You bring in striker Matias Cocaro from Montevideo down in Argentina or Uruguay. I apologize forgetting off the top of the dome there. Raheem Edwards, you bring him in via trade from the LA Galaxy, and as well as Dominic Yankov, who is a Canadian born, so technically he's not going to eat up any international roster spot for them, which I really like. But you bring in also on loan Joaquin Sosa from Bologna. Like, Montreal did, I think, as good of any job that probably isn't going to get enough credit, and I'll give them the credit now, to upgrade at pretty much every single position that they needed an upgrade at. Central midfield, they needed an upgrade on one of the wings, well, on both of the wings, and they did that. At striker, at center back depth, right? I think Montreal has done enough, especially if Courtois can kind of work with some of the youth on this team, similar to what Wilfred Nancy did. I think he's done enough, and this front office has done enough for Montreal to be a competitive team that's fighting for the playoffs deep into the season. Will they get over that playoff line? That's kind of where I have them as a little bit of a fringe team. Again, not to give too much away there, but I like what Montreal did. I think Matthew Choinière, their MVP from last season, is still going to be probably the most influential player when we're talking about Montreal at the end of this 2024 season. The dude can play everywhere. He can play central midfield, out on the wing, a little bit of attacking midfielder. He can get up and score, and he can distribute, and he can do it all. And that's what I think Courtois is going to probably lean into a lot this season, with where can Choinière kind of fill in some of the gaps, some of the holes. If players aren't, playing well, injuries, whatever, I think Choinière is going to be that dude once again. And I think if he can get as much as he can out of Victor Wanyama, who I'm shocked is still on the roster, then I think Montreal can be a playoff team. But those are a lot of ifs, right? On top of the normal, how does injury concerns look and everything like that over the course of any season for any club around the world. So I like Montreal. I think that the additions they've made filled holes. I think that there's a base of players that are still good enough to have this team be competitive. I love Jonathan I think it's Sirois down in net. I think he's widely underrated goalkeeper in Major League Soccer, but I think it's just going to come down to what can Laurent Courtois get out of some of the younger talent, and can that younger talent raise the floor for Montreal?
Yeah, I would say this is another team that is going to suffer from the East having a pretty good offseason across the board. But I don't know. I feel like Victor Wanyama is sort of like the guy I'm watching to see, like, can he get back to where he was at when he was really good? Or is this kind of the new Victor Wanyama that we're going to see and he's kind of not impactful? And that's going to tank their season, I think, if he's not impactful or not good enough.
Because then you're relying on not that I think Samuel Piet's a bad player, but you're relying on him to be your sole D mid option. And it's just, if Wanyama can be not even what he was 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago, but if he can be just a consistent week in, week out, give you a solid shift every single week, I think that just brings so much consistency and so much just security to the back line behind him, to his central midfield partner, and kind of just connecting everything.
Yeah, and I don't have a ton to add. I just think that, like, in my opinion, that's a pretty big point of impact there. But overall, I do think the team is solid. Like, on paper, they're not amazing, but
Yeah.
it's going to be tough for them in this conference. I think they're going to have a season where it might not be too easy. But
I can agree with you on that.
Next up is Nashville, managed by Gary Smith. 7th in the East last season, where they lost to Orlando City in the first round. 0 trophies. Bigger signings. They got Tyler Boyd in to kind of help.
Just be offense, period.
Like, create offense or anything. Drew Yearwood, I think, is a solid signing in the midfield from Red Bulls. Lucas McNaughton as a center back, as sort of depth there, which is solid. And they also brought in Mackenzie Gaines from Charlotte, another somewhat attacking player that could help them out. Losses, there wasn't like a ton, but they did obviously lose Dax McCarty, who's been kind of like a staple in that team for a long time, and Fafa Pico, which is another pretty big name to lose. Nashville, to me, like, I'm not super excited about going into this season. I think we're going to see the same thing we've been seeing under Gary Smith for years. And at this point, like, I'm not, as the league continues to get better, it feels like Nashville's strategies are having less of an impact with each year. And I think it's going to be shown again. Like, how much can you rely on a Hani Mukhtar, which is the guy, right? That is Nashville, right? That's everything about Nashville is Hani Mukhtar. And we've seen him go out there and get, 15 and 15 pretty much every season, roughly. Yeah. Like, he's that kind of player. He's an MVP caliber player. But you're going to, like, have to rely on him again and again and again. And we just keep seeing the same thing. And for some reason, it's working. So I can't really, like, it has somewhat worked. So I can't really hate on it. But I just think that the strategy, in my opinion, is a strategy that is very consistent for Nashville. But as the league is continuing to get better, is actually not the best strategy. They're not going to be able to hold some of these attacking teams to 1 goal a game or 0 goals. It's going to be harder. And then when you are starting to allow maybe 1 goal, 2 goals a game, where are your goals going to come from? And I think that, like, one of the biggest question marks for me going into the season is Sam Surridge, who comes in with a lot of expectations and honestly does not live up to any of them. You saw in that game against Orlando City, some pretty big chances missed. And not only by Surridge, by many on Nashville. Yeah. So I think Tyler Boyd's going to help them with their attack, but I just don't see enough attacking talent coming in to offset just like, oh, we need to rely on Hani to do something incredible again and again and again. And I think that's an issue for the team.
My concern is what happens if what happened at the end of last year continues to happen, where teams figured out Hani to an extent, right? Because Hani's still talent-wise one of the best players in the league, but figures out how to neutralize Hani to an extent and puts the ball at the feet of a Surridge or a Tyler Boyd or a Jacob Schaffelberg or whoever we're going to talk about. Do the other complementary pieces have enough where Nashville's baseline defense is going to be there? It's Walker Zimmerman, it's Jack Mayer, it's Shaq Moore, right? Like, we know what they can do, and they're great. And defensively, one of the best teams, if not the best team, every single year under Gary Smith. But if Hani Mukhtar is neutralized, do they have the other pieces around them to overcome that and then maybe unlock Hani a little bit more? I'm with you. I'm leaning towards no. I don't even think the Tyler Boyd addition does that much, to be completely honest. And it's no shot at Tyler, but the team doesn't really play with wingers, so it's also a weird addition to me as well. Same with the Mackenzie Gaines addition. I know today they just signed some 22-year-old striker from the Canadian Premier League who's scored in bunches. But again, is that going to be the thing that helps you and helps Hani out? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm think Nashville's going to be fine just purely based off their defense, but
they're going to be the same Nashville though. Like I think my point is like the conference is getting better and they're not really. And they're not getting better. It's still good because of the defense and because of the quality they have. Like obviously you still have Walker Zimmerman, who is a every single year defender of the year category type player. And I think they're gonna be okay, but my concern is like, what if Hani gets hurt? Like what if?
Oh, that's the end of a season. 100%.
Exactly, and it's like your whole season is relying on one guy, and like you said, teams know that now. They're like, okay, make someone else beat you.
Yeah,
make someone else beat us, and if it's not going to be Hani, who is it going to be? And there's no one on the roster where I'm like, yep, that guy's going to win the game for them. Like there's just no one there. There's no one.
100%. I'm with you. I don't think they're a bad team, but I don't think they're getting better, and that's just going to slowly move you down the standings every single year. I mean, look at Sporting Kansas City the last few years, like a team that I think just remained the same. And, outside of what they did the second half of last year, I'll give them that credit. But
the thing is, you have to innovate in a league that's continuing to grow, continuing to build. You have to be innovative. And when you do the same thing for the fourth straight year, teams are like, okay, we know exactly what you're doing. Your advantages start to fall off a little bit. 100%. And we saw that last season. I think we're going to see it even a little bit more this season.
100%. Well, Jason, we have 6 teams left and we have about 19 minutes, so I'm going to chug through NYCFC here. So my boys, New York City, Nick Cushing, his second full season as a manager. I'm going to say this here. I think him and Gonzalo Pineda are the 2 managers that are on the hottest of seats heading into the 2024 MLS season. So I'm just going to throw that out there first and foremost. But NYCFC, Nick Cushing, 2023 finish. They were 11th in the Eastern Conference, missing out on the playoffs and not winning any trophies. Not too many big time losses, I'm going to say. Richie Ledesma and Brian Coufre were probably the 2 biggest names. They went back to their clubs back in Europe after their loans kind of ended. Ledesma to PSV, Coufre to a La Liga team that Mallorca. I'm pretty sure it's Mallorca. Also some key additions, right? Alfredo Morales, Matias Pellegrini, and then kind of some homegrowns and some younger players as well past that. But on the addition side, this is where I think it gets fun for NYCFC and fans who like watching them. Agustin Ojeda, that is their big time addition this offseason. 19-year-old winger from Racing down in Argentina. This dude is the real deal. City Football Group is the one who scouted him, signed him, went for it, and then placed him with NYCFC, right? Other players who we've seen like that are a Tati Castellanos, are a Talos Magno, are a Julian Fernandez, right? Like guys like that who are big time players and who have done big things in Major League Soccer and for NYCFC. Hans Wolf, another addition this offseason. He's a winger. He's a potential left wing back option coming from Borussia Mönchengladbach in the German Bundesliga. Also, NYCFC permanently acquiring central midfielder Andres Pereira from Philly in a rare NYCFC making an inter-MLS move. And I like it. But other than that, right, they re-signed some players. They added a center back depth piece in Strahinja. Tanasejevic. I'm going to go with that. I don't know. He's coming from, he's coming from the Scandinavian region where NYCFC's had a lot of success in scouting in the past. So look, this was an off season that feels like building towards a roster that we saw about 2 seasons ago, kind of like the MLS Cup era roster builds, right? Last season, last offseason specifically, was a lot of talent, was a lot of consistent starters and players we've known for a while departing the club that the club didn't really replace. So that's why I'm not here on the bashing Nick Cushing train, because I think he wasn't really given a lot to succeed with. I think now this is the roster that if he's not finding success with, then this is the type of thing you have to move on from, right? James Sands and Keaton Parks, they're the dudes in the central midfield. They're the leaders of this club. You have guys like Mitja Elenic, you have a Julian Fernandez, a Monsef Bakrar, a Santi Rodriguez, Talis Magno, guys like that who have now are either going into their first full season or who have been here about a season and a half now, 2 seasons, who I think need to play at a high level and play at an MLS baseline level. And I think they can do that. I have a lot of hope, and that is coming from an NYCFC fan. I can definitely say that with my rose-colored glasses, but I have the hope that this is a NYCFC roster and rebuild and team that can play fun, exciting, possession-based, play it out of the back type soccer that puts them back in a playoff picture. That is all I'll say about NYCFC.
I won't add a whole lot just in the interest of time, but I think you guys did improve. I think they're a solid. I think it will be more fun to watch. But I think they might struggle with the fact that, like, again, like most of the East got better. Like, I think that might be a little bit tough for them to have like
100%.
actual like results based improvement versus like seeing them and being like, oh, the eye test is there. Like they look way better, but it might not actually translate to like, oh, they have 30 more points this year than last year. Like
the average age of the roster is also like 22.4 years, like very young team.
I think this is another team though that like you could argue like patience is key here. Like I don't know, I think you're right. Like Nick Cushing might be sort of on the hot seat, but I still think if there is improvement in terms of the on-field product, in the quality, in the competitiveness, I wouldn't make like a rash decision in terms of like, oh, we finished here or whatever. Again, it's not good enough or whatever. Like I think seeing it actually on the field is what's going to matter the most for them.
Just score goals. That's all I want. Just score fucking goal. Well, I muted myself accidentally.
Yeah, I don't know what just happened.
I got so angry about the NYCFC's lack of goal scoring ability that it muted me. We can talk about the Revolution now.
All right, we're going to the Revolution. New manager, Caleb Porter, which in my opinion is one of their bigger additions after what happened last season. 5th in the East, lost to Philly in the first round, 0 trophies. Big signings for them was Henrik Ravas from Widzu Lodz, I think. New goalkeeper. So, I mean, they've had a good track record in goalkeepers, and I think he's already said something like he wants to go to the Premier League next or something like that. So,
I mean, if you're following in the path of the last two.
Yeah, I mean, so I trust them in terms of signing goalkeepers, so I think that's a big one. I think Jonathan Mensah coming in is another pretty solid move for them. And then, dude, I have so many tabs open. And I also actually really like the addition of Nick Lima. I've always liked him as a player. I think that him coming in there is going to be a solid improvement. Honestly, like this team, what can Caleb Porter bring? Obviously, this guy is a manager who has won MLS Cup in the past. And this, they were in 3rd before all that, blew up last season. So that's like, we're almost skewed by how the end of the year finished when you look at this team. But I think like Carles Hill is going to thrive under Caleb Porter. I think we've seen it before with Zelarayan in Columbus. I think we've seen it before when Porter had Valeri in Portland. So I think Carles Hill is going to have a huge season, which is awesome. I think Vrioni needs to have a good season for them to, be solid. Obviously, Gustavo Bo is no longer there, so that's a major loss for them. They also lost Christian Magoon, which is tough. But I just think, like, this team has experience. They have depth. Like, we've said it before, this team is still sort of like the core that set MLS records, right? They're still a very good team. And I think having Caleb Porter consistently there, having less outside noise, and they're going to be solidly in the playoff spots once again.
Yeah, again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to add too much. There's a lot of talent on this roster. Caleb Porter is going to get to do a lot with a lot of talent, and that does have me excited for this team, and a team that was still very good for a majority of the year under a good manager. Now you bring in another good manager.
Look, they still finished pretty strong even after all of that blew up,
Yeah,
and they basically didn't have a manager.
yeah, and I don't know. I think the Reds are going to be a team that are back up closer to the top, but we'll get to that soon enough. Let's go to the other side of New York. The New York Red Bulls, under brand new manager Sandro Schwarz, coming over from the Bundesliga with some experience in Russia as well. In 2023, the club finished 8th in the Eastern Conference, winning the MLS Cup playoff play-in game and losing to FC Cincinnati in the first round of the actual MLS Cup playoffs, not winning a trophy last year. The big time departures, they did open up a DP spot in losing out on, selling Luquinhas to Fortaleza down in Brazil. Otmir Fernandez was a winger who left via free agency, who we've talked about a ton with his move to Colorado, and Tom Barlow heading over to the Chicago Fire via trade. As far as the additions, I mean, look, it's the big addition we're going to talk about. It's Emil Forsberg, attacking midfielder, winger from RB Leipzig, coming in, staying in the Red Bull family. On top of that, Noah Elie, a center back, a U22 initiative center back from Malmo. He's 6'5". Like, how do you not like a 6'5" young
That's
center back?
insane.
Aiden O'Connor, another center back that has a lot of potential, known within the Red Bull system, coming in via the NCAA and everything like that there. So, look, Red Bulls did the Red Bull thing. They added a lot of homegrowns. They added a lot of young talent, potential, all that fun stuff that we like to talk about with the Red Bulls. And then on top of that, it's Emil Forsberg. To me, when I look at the Red Bulls heading into 2024, Lewis Morgan comes back from a very long-term injury. And 2 years ago, Lewis Morgan was that dude, like DP level player playing for the Red Bulls. I think you pair him with Forsberg, with Dante Van Zier, if he can kind of bounce back from his rough start in many different ways to his MLS tenure. Daniel Edelman was a solid number 6, I think, in this league. John Tolkien still back on this roster, which again is another player I'm surprised wasn't sold to Europe. Sean Nialis.
Could be a summer. Like, I think some of these guys, it makes more sense in the summer because of the way
for sure
seasons work over there. So,
for sure.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of, again, it's the Red Bulls. I think there's a lot of young talent that I think what's been missing the last 2 years is a high-end DP to kind of tie it all together. And I feel like Emil Forsberg can potentially be that. He's not an out-and-out goal-scoring threat every single game, right? But if Van Zier can kind of be that, if Lewis Morgan can bounce back and kind of be that, and Forsberg is just kind of the facilitator for it all, whether he's out on the wing cutting in or whether he's playing more central or whatever, I think the Red Bulls can be good again. I think the Red Bulls can be a playoff team once again, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's going to be dependent on Van Zier and to see if he can really have a more consistent year going forward.
On and off the field, right?
Yeah, on and off the field, just be a consistent player, be someone that isn't causing issues. And then having Emil Forsberg, obviously, like you said, a very high quality DP that was from the Red Bull system already, so he kind of knows he's going to slot in probably pretty easily. But yeah, I mean, it's Van Zier for me. If he's not getting goals, if he's not using the service that's provided from a Lewis Morgan or a Forsberg or a Maya or somebody, then this team's going to struggle and they're not going to be as good as I think their potential is. Where I think their potential is pretty high, but Van Zier is just such a massive question mark. Is he going to even be there for the whole season? Is he, like, who knows what's going to happen?
Exactly. Tolkien too, right? Tolkien's a key. If he's there for the season, it's a major upgrade on that for sure. But
yeah, I mean, if you lose a guy like Tolkien in a position like left back, which is such a massive position, and if you have a guy that's like very high quality in that position, it's a huge advantage. So losing that would be pretty brutal.
I mean, like he was doing everything last year, from scoring goals, like literally the best player down a stretch for them to make the playoffs once again. So, I mean, the Red Bulls, I think they're gonna be fine. I think the Red Bulls, their playoff streak won't be ending anytime soon. But yeah, let's move forward. I guess Orlando City.
Orlando City. So manager Oscar Pereja finished second last season in the East and lost to Columbus in the conference semifinals. So 0 trophies for them. But I mean, I think this team is high quality. I put on here big departures, almost Duncan McGuire, because it was almost going to happen, which actually is a little bit less of a huge departure because they did bring in, I think you said it was today actually, or yesterday. Luis Muriel is a striker from Atlanta. I said Atlanta. Who comes in as a DP, a TP attacker. So they've got their eggs in the DP basket up front here with Facundo Torres, Martin Ojeda having hopefully an improved season, helping create for Luis Muriel or Duncan McGuire. I think.
I was gonna say, and Duncan McGuire for about 6 months, probably, or whatever.
Probably 6 months, I would say, after what happened. But I think the biggest, I should mention Mauricio Pereira was a mutual contract non-renewal or whatever, dismissal. And Junior Urso, center mid. So a little bit of some midfield depth out. But you brought in, I think, one of the bigger moves that they made was Nico Lodiero, who obviously MLS staple, won in Seattle for many, many years, still a high-quality creator, a high-quality midfielder who's going to come into this Orlando team and help them continue to improve, continue to create chances. Pareja is still there, he's still going to have his system in place. It's a team that was very good last season and is pretty consistent from last season over to this season in terms of the players on the field. I think, again, the East is getting better. I think they even got better from last season.
They improved. I think.
That doesn't mean they're going to finish second. That doesn't. But I think they did improve. Yeah. I'd say having multiple competitions may hurt them a little bit. I think just tons of games might be not great, as it isn't for most teams. Right? We've seen a lot of teams struggle. But LAFC made 3 finals last year or something and lost all of them. But I'm excited about this team going into next season.
I'll finish up with my piece on Orlando's. I think the biggest acquisitions or players that they brought in, and they did bring in a lot of talent, is the re-signing of Oscar Pereja and general manager Luis Muzzi, right? Keeping the front office going, keeping the coaching going. I think Orlando City did a smart long-term play move there. But let's keep going. Philadelphia Union. Let's talk about a team who didn't get better. I'll blatantly just say that from the jump. Manager Jim Curtin.
You could also say that's not the worst thing ever.
No, but I think you have to keep getting, like we've said this entire.
Yeah, you do have to keep getting better. Especially, it feels like this season is one of the biggest seasons where it's did you not get better? What were you doing?
Look at what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
But manager Jim Curtin for the Philadelphia Union in 2023, they finished 4th in the Eastern Conference, losing to FC Cincinnati in the conference semifinals. They did not win a trophy last year. Not much on the departure end, right? I mentioned Andres Pereira when I talked about NYCFC in that trade. Joe Bendick left on free agency. Anton Sorensen left on free agency. Those 3 players are literally the only players that left the club completely. They do have Richard Odata and Brandon Craig out on loan, but that's, even if you want to count them, that's 5 players. It's one of the smallest, I'm going to say, departures of any roster in the league. As far as players coming in, for new players coming in, very limited on that as well. They signed a right back from Bolivia's first division. They signed central midfielder Saunders Ngbayo from Lyngby over in Scandinavia. They got a left back and Isaiah LaFleur from the Houston Dynamo too. But really, the additions came in the form of re-signings, right? Julian Carranza, Alejandro Bedoya, Leon Flock, Damian Lowe, the big-time names and starters that from this Philadelphia Union squad over the last 3, 4, 5+ seasons. They came back via re-signings this offseason, and that's where the club put their money and they wanted to bring it back. Kai Wagner, another guy that they wanted to
I think
bring
that's one of the biggest ones, Kai Wagner.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's gonna have to deal with some suspension to start the
Mhm.
season for sure. But I mean, look, he is arguably the best left back talent in the league, and bringing him back raises that level for the Philadelphia Union because he is one of the best defenders. On top of that, one of the best creators, and we've seen that year in and year out from him. The Philadelphia Union, it's a similar mindset that I have when previewing them to Nashville, where there's not much different. It's Ure, it's Carranza, it's Gazdag as the attacking three. It's Wagner, Glesnes, Elliott, and Bizo, Nathan Harriel, all on that back line. Damian Lowe's going to sub in at points, and Andre Blake is still a game winner. And it's Alejandro Bedoya, another year older. It's Jose Martinez is one of the best sixes. Jack McGlynn is going to probably take a step up as a central midfielder. Leon Flack is going to miss a decent amount of time. He does have a long-term injury, so that kind of sucks. So sorry, Leon, about that. But this team is a lot of the same, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not necessarily a good thing or an exciting thing. They're still going to be good. They're still going to be competitive. Jim Curtin is still a phenomenal manager, still a phenomenal tactician, and I have complete faith and confidence in him there. But where are they going to take the steps forward? Look, maybe some of these homegrowns and these young talents and everything like that, they're the step forward piece. And if they are, then that's where the Union are growing, and that's great. But if they're not, then the Philadelphia Union are going to get caught up a little bit, I think, at some point this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the comparison with Nashville in terms of like not a ton of change is kind of good, but also it almost ends there because I think this team is far better equipped going into the season than Nashville is in terms of did they stay most of the same? Yes,
For
but
sure.
this
Yeah.
team is just a much better team than Nashville.
They're in a better spot than Nashville.
Well,
yes.
they also just have more than one way to play, I guess. I think their back line is in keeper arguably top 2-3 units in all of MLS in that position.
Yeah.
I think they're going to like sometimes we've talked about how teams are improving. Sometimes doing the same thing in this scenario isn't horrible. Like you said, with all these teams improving, does that drop them a bit? Does that hurt them a bit? Yeah, probably. But they're still going to be a good team. They're still going to be a team that people don't want to play, that is hard to beat, that's consistent, that knows what they're doing.
I'm less confident in Philly than I think you are, but I don't think
I'm
Philly's
pretty confident they're going to be fine, to be honest. Like, I'm not worried about Philly at all, besides the fact that like other teams are just better now. Not better than Philly, but better than they were.
Yes. I think that's
not better than Philly necessarily. Maybe they are, but
I think that's fair.
what did I put? Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a consistency for Philly is their thing. And you mentioned the homegrowns, if they do come out and improve or whatever, and the younger guys, it's like if there's any team that has like a record for that, it would be Philly, right? They're one of the teams that would be Philly.
100%. 100%. I mean, let's finish things up with a team that I think we both probably have major concerns about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we had to do this one last and why I got it, but whatever, man. We're gonna move on to Toronto FC manager John Herdman, who I mean that is their addition, I guess. One of their main
addition.
0 trophies, 15th in the East last season. Just an absolute season from hell for them last year with Bernadeschi and Insigne just like rioting practically in the locker room. Just no consistency there. I put down, they got a new D mid, and I'm gonna try and say the name. I gotta pull it back up.
You got it. It's
Ivy Flores.
Yes.
I think that's somewhat of like a depth piece / maybe he'll get some starting minutes. Probably they lost Michael Bradley obviously to retirement. CJ Sapong, who
Ironman FC gets them all every single time.
We all know that I love CJ Sapong.
Yes.
I mean, there's talent on this team. It's like DeAndre Kerr is a good striker. Lorenzo Insigne and Federico Bernadeschi are still like somewhat towards the end of like what should have been their prime, and it's not gone well. I mean, Ayo Akinola is still on this team, which I thought for a long time ago he was gone. There's literally no depth
And can I just say this? And I'm not trying to cut the preview short on Toronto. I'm just trying to just let the people know this team is in shambles. Like
I don't see a route for them not being in 15th, basically.
They have 6 strikers on their depth chart with 2 fullbacks and 3 center backs and 2 goalkeepers. Like did they know the offseason began? Did they know there was a transfer window? Did they know that they could get better? Like I don't know these things.
Well, they're also obviously they have Insigne and Bernadeschi for another season.
That's where all the money went.
Those guys were actively not happy with any of it.
Bernadeschi was actively trying to get a roster spot on a Serie A club this offseason and couldn't do it. Like this is Toronto is going to be they're 15th for me. They're going to be dog shit. They're going
we'll just move to that because they're 15th to me too. Also.
Sorry, Jason, and I apologize to cut you short on that. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to
No, I don't mind it at all. You didn't. I don't actually have that much to say about them besides the fact that where did you didn't even a lot of teams improved. Some stayed the same, like we've talked about. I don't think they got better or stayed the same. I think they might have gotten worse.
Oh, they 100% got worse. Again, it's not saying that there's not talent on the roster. Sean John, Jonathan Osorio, Latif Blessing, MLS veteran players who we know that are good, but it's not even shots at them. It's just shots at there's 11 players on the roster, literally. And it's not actually 11. That's a joke, but there's not that much more than 11. Let's be real about
this team. This team is going to be one injury away from do they even have who plays at certain positions?
They're one injury away from calling up TFC2 from MLS Next Pro and running out a third division team.
It's a shame because I love Sean Johnson. It's wow, I don't want to see him on this team, dude. He's going to get absolutely peppered.
I'm so sad that Jonathan Osorio, a lifetimer of this club and a dude who signed a long-term contract and finally got a DP deal with this club, has to remain on this unless in the next 7 days until the MLS season starts, or 8 days until the MLS season starts, unless they pull out 3 moves out of nowhere, I don't know what Toronto's doing. Jason Hernandez is the brand new general manager there. I like the move. I like when former players get the bump up to leadership spots, but you got to move
to improve.
Yeah, John Herdman, what are you doing? It's wild to me. But sorry, it's Toronto's so frustrating. So I will start.
Herdman also is I'm not gonna say a bad he's not a bad coach necessarily, but that was the most least research, simplest hire they could have made. Canada men's national team, Canada women's national team, TFC.
Bring him to one of the 3 biggest clubs in Canada. That's whatever. Let's move to it. 15. I have Toronto FC. I'm sure you do too.
I do. Yeah. I was typing in for me. If you want to type in for you, I don't know.
It's fine. I'm gonna write it down, and then I'm just gonna add it in later. So I'm just handwriting it.
Well, I'm gonna type it in for me because otherwise I'm probably gonna miss teams.
No worries. I'll since I started off 15 with my anger of TFC, I'll let you do 14.
I have Charlotte.
Yeah. I have DC United at 14.
All right.
And then I'll just quickly say this. I have Charlotte at 13, so not too far off from you there.
Funny enough, I have DC United.
There we go. I just moved Charlotte up to 13th today, and I did these 2 nights ago, so not too crazy there.
I have 3 different ones. I think it's my turn, though, to go first, right?
Yeah, you got it.
I have Montreal in 12.
Montreal at 12. Well, I have Montreal in 11th. I'll say that because I'll go back to back here. At 12, I know I gave them a lot of credit and praise, but I have the New York Red Bulls at 12.
Okay.
So Red Bulls at 12, Montreal at 11. Jason, who do you have at 11?
I have the Red Bulls in 11.
Oh, so we're literally just one off here.
And I have NYCFC in 10.
Well, I hate you. That's fun. It was a great time on doing this podcast with you. All
right, last episode. See ya.
The funny thing is I have Chicago in 10th, so that's fine.
You, man.
And I have NYCFC in 9. So.
Oh, what the hell?
I got down to, I did 1 through 8. And then I worked from the bottom up, and I had Chicago and NYCFC left for 9 and 10. I was like, one of these is a playing game, one of these is not. Jason's not getting a playing game over me. That's my pure.
Oh, you are the worst, man. Wait, I have to count now. 50, 40.
I need 9.
I have Nashville in 9.
Okay.
And I have to give 8. I have Chicago in 8.
There you go. Hey, you're still in a playing game. That's fine. I mean, you know,
I was right about where the Fire finished last season.
You were.
Like
You know,
the one
that
thing
was
I was right about.
that was one of the few right picks we got there. All right, so you have Nashville in 9th. You have Chicago Fire in 8th. I have Nashville in 8th. So similar thinking there as well. So that's fine. This is very anticlimactic between the two of us. I mean,
I'm having fun. I mean, we're off, but we're only really off by like one spot.
Yeah, like 1 or 2 spots depending on the team.
I think the top 5 or so might be different, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think I'm from the way you were talking about some teams. I'm gonna say so. In 7th, I have Atlanta United.
7, you have Atlanta. Is that? Oh man, I also do. In 6, I have Miami though.
In 6, you have Miami. 6, I have New England.
New England.
Oh, right. Sorry, you were supposed to probably give me 6 and 5 there. So sorry about
I'll
that.
just give 5 now.
Yeah, hit me.
I have Philly.
Philly in 5th. Okay, maybe I'm higher on Philly than you were. 5th,
which is funny because I felt like I was higher talking about them.
I have so to stick with you, you had Miami in 6th. I have Miami in 5th.
You have Miami in 5th. Okay.
Yeah, so I have I have Atlanta 7, New England 6, Miami 5. You have Atlanta 7, Miami 6, Philly 5. Yeah. Do you want to go with your number 4 pick?
I think you go 4.
Oh, yeah, duh. Thanks. I have Philly in 4.
Oh man.
And again, just another spot off for you there.
I have Orlando in 4th.
Orlando in 4.
In 3rd, I have New England.
Okay, so you have Orlando 4, New England 3. So New England's our biggest difference right now across the entire Eastern Conference. Is I have New England.
And it's only 3 spots away. Yeah, it is the biggest
literally,
difference, so, yeah.
Literally. For 3, I have. Well, I'll just give my. You already gave your 3 in New England. Do you just want to give your 2 and your 1 because it's not going to be that big of a deal? I guess
2 is Cincinnati. 1 is Columbus.
Yep. Wow, we literally almost picked the exact same 15. 4, I have Philly. 3, I have. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, my screen's just black, but that's fine.
You're paused on my screen. I don't know.
Well, that's fine. Sorry, listeners. Here we are. Philly. I have Philly in 4. I have Orlando in 3rd. I have Cincinnati in 2nd, and I have Columbus in 1st. So we literally have.
All right, let's go back from the 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. And so then we can actually the listeners can actually see because I'm sure that was impossible to follow.
Yes. So first, we both have Columbus.
Right.
2nd, we both have Cincinnati. 3rd, I have Orlando. You have New England.
Mm-hmm.
4th, I have Philly. You have Orlando. 5th, I have Miami. You have Philly. 6th, I have New England. You have Miami. 7, we both have Atlanta. So there's a 3rd similarity there. 8th, you have I have Nashville. You have Chicago. 9th, I have NYC. You have Nashville. 10th, I have Chicago. You have NYC. 11, I have Montreal. You have the Red Bulls. 12, I have the Red Bulls. You have Montreal. 13th, I have Charlotte. You have DC. 14th, I have DC. You have Charlotte. And then 15th, we both have Toronto. So
it's crazy because they look so similar, but we only had 4 the same.
We have 4 the same, but how many do we literally just have one off?
Well, 14 and 13 are flipped for both of us. 12 and 11 are flipped for both of us.
Yep.
9 and 8 are flipped for both of us.
Yeah.
7 is the same. 6,
5 and 4 are.
You have 4, 5, and I have 5, 6. Miami or Philly, Miami.
We literally almost have the closest, I think, think thing to an identical 1 through 15 that we could have made not talking to each other about.
It is crazy. Yeah. For the listeners, we had no idea. I literally wrote it down today.
Yeah, I know. I did this 2 days ago. I made some changes today. Jason, you've been away, so we haven't really like talked that much leading into this. So I mean, maybe we record too much. Maybe we talk to each other via podcast too much. Share too many opinions. I don't know.
Honestly, though, like I don't think either of us are. I don't know. We'll see at the end of the season.
I don't think we're that off. And then Columbus is the worst team in the league.
Yeah, I don't think I'm that off. And then I look at the chart from last year, and it's all red.
Yeah, literally, we thought we were good last year, right? All right. So, Jason, that was the Eastern Conference. Next week, we got the Western Conference. Then we have MLS action. Listeners, if you're an hour and 24 minutes in with us, thank you. God bless you.
Sticking around.
Thank you for sticking around. If not, then we'll post our Eastern Conference picks on social media as well. Thank you, guys. Stay tuned next week for the Western Conference. And we are back. MLS is almost back. And that's it. Not a good ending. Boom.